So I spent a little time this week on a website called Ancestry.com. Have you done this? Show of hands. Okay, how many of you have sent in your DNA sample, to 23? Okay, quite a few of you. There is, in recent years, a much greater fascination about tracing our ancestors, better understanding where we came from. We have tools available to us that just weren't available to us in the past. And so we're intrigued, we're interested. Like for generations, it's been difficult for people to even name their great-grandparents. Just think about that. Like most of us would have a hard time remembering the names of our great-grandparents, but now we're able to trace back our history of generations. In fact, I was surprised how far I could trace things back. So I was looking on my mom's side of the family, and I can trace things back to the 1500s. And I'll introduce you to some of my relatives. So this is on my mom's side of the family. So apparently I do have some family from Kentucky. Been waiting all week for that. And so this is Albert, a little bit of a hipster. This is her name. I'm just telling you what her name is. This is Minnie. That's her name. I love how Minnie has her arm around Albert's shoulder, and he's got his around her waist. So some relatives of mine. Here's my dad's side of the family. So these are my great-great-great-grandparents. This was their Christmas card, I think, that year that they sent out. Actually, it was her 40th birthday that they're celebrating. Come on, it's kind of like she's laughing. She thinks that's funny. I don't really know when this was taken. I'm assuming it was like on the backside of some pandemic. Like to me, this is what my wife and I are going to look like at the end of 2020. There'll be much more resemblance if you just give it another 6 months. So here's a more recent one, just one more for you. This is my grandfather, Wilbur. It's my mom's dad. And I don't know if you can see the resemblance. Okay, I'll give you a second here. Do you notice it? See that right there? It's his fault. That's where it comes from. Like some of you remember this a number of months ago where I talked about my right ear. Can you see it? Sticks out further from my head than my left. It's Wilbur's fault. And we all have it. We all have like different things that have been passed down to us from our ancestors. It's interesting to study where we came from because it gives us a better understanding of how we got to where we are. And all of us have, if we study it, some things we're grateful for, but we also have some things maybe not so much. Some parts of our family tree we don't really want to continue. Like we want some of what shows up on our branch to be different than some of the other branches on our family tree. And if you've studied this, if you've looked into your history, personal history, you've probably have your own examples of this. Sometimes it's physical attributes, but sometimes it's not. But there are branches that we see. And we're like, well, look, our branches may connect to the same tree, but that's not going to be me. Like we all have some of that. I was having lunch with a buddy of mine recently who told me that his dad, when he was younger, would run around on his mom, and his grandpa had done that before him. And my buddy was just very fiercely determined. That's their story. That's not my story. Our branches may connect to the same tree, but that's not going to be me. All of us have some things like that. Maybe you grew up in a home that wasn't very affectionate. Not a lot of warmth, but you said, I'm going to do it different. I'm going to be more intentional to be affectionate and speak words of love and be more tender. Like our branches may connect to the same tree, but that's not going to be me. Or maybe you come from a family that was racist. And you remember comments made, words spoken, you remember the jokes. And you're determined it stops with you. Like your branches may be connected to the same tree, but you're going to bear some different fruit in your life. Or come from a line of alcoholics, and you saw what that produced, and you're like, God, that's not gonna be my story. We're gonna do something different. Our branches may connect to the same tree, but that's not gonna be me. We all have some areas when we look at our family tree where we feel pretty strongly about that. Let me tell you about the family tree of a man named John. So John had a brother named James. They were really close. They were close in age, and they were a lot alike. They grew up in a home where they learned to be fishermen at a young age. Their dad, his name was Zebedee. They called him Zeb for short, and Zeb worked them hard, and he was hard on them, right? Like not a lot of warmth, not a lot of affection, it would seem, in that home as John grew up. And as he got a little bit older, he began to have this reputation as having a bad temper. But so did other people in his family. His brother was the same way. James was the same way. They were reactive. They would get angry. Like you didn't want to say the wrong thing around John because he was going to overreact and he was going to get angry and make threats and his voice was going to raise. I mean, that's just the way John was. And his brother James, they were the same way. In fact, they were given the nickname because they had such kind of this violent or angry nature. They were given the nickname Sons of Thunder. Sons of Thunder. And they went on actually to start a tag team wrestling duo. This is John over here. It's James. No, I mean, it sounds like it though, right? Sons of Thunder. It sounds kind of like this tag team brother approach. Angry, always looking for a fight. But James and John, you can get that, take that off. Sorry, John. James and John were actually disciples of Jesus. They were 2 of the 12 disciples. John was one of the closest disciples of Jesus, but Jesus is the one who gave him that nickname. He's the one who called them Sons of Thunder. And there's an example of this nature that we see in John early on as he's following Jesus. In Luke chapter 9, Jesus is with his disciples, and they are traveling, and they go through this region of Samaria, and they need a place to stay. It's night time, and they need a place to stay for the night, a place to crash, but nobody welcomes them. And John sees the way Jesus is treated, and he's just irate. And so he says, this is John to Jesus in Luke 9:54, Lord, do you want us to call down from heaven, fire from heaven to destroy them? You want us to do that? And Jesus is like, I'm not sure you know how to do that, John, but no, it's not necessary. In fact, the Bible says that Jesus rebuked John. Jesus was not overly sensitive. In fact, Jesus never got offended because of an insult that was hurled at him. He knew who he was. He wasn't easily offended, but John sees the way Jesus is treated, and he's ready to call down fire from heaven to destroy the people because of the way they've treated Jesus. So it's a son of thunder, and he's the one who is talking to us about Jesus in his final days before his crucifixion. So we're in a series where we're studying the final discourse of Jesus. These are the final words of Jesus before he would be crucified. His final words to his closest followers. We started in John 14. We spent the last 5-6 weeks in John 14. This week we're starting in John 15. And one of the reasons I'm just going from John 14 through John 17 and verse by verse in this study is because I'll be honest, I got tired in this season of always being reactive. It just felt like every weekend, okay? Thursday, Friday, something new comes out, everything changes. What are we going to talk about this weekend to make sure it connects to what's going on? And while I think it's incredibly important to be relevant, what I knew to be true and what has been proven out over the last number of weeks, and I'm confident will continue to be proven, is that when we just study the words of Jesus, it's incredibly relevant. And we've seen that again and again in John 14. We'll see it again as we study John 15. It's going to feel like we just set it up for this season of everything that's happening in our world. Because Jesus is going to talk to us about loving. Jesus is going to talk to us about not being caught off guard when people don't like us. He's going to talk to us about keeping unity despite differences. And in John 15, the series we're starting is Be the Branch. And John, the son of thunder, is talking to us about these final moments in Jesus' life. If Be the Branch sounds familiar, it's one of our mantras at church, where we just say we're going to stay connected to Jesus no matter what. Like our priority is on connection. So, from John 14 to John 15, here's what's changed. It's the setting. If you've been going with us in the series, then you remember John 14 is taking place in the upper room. They've had the Last Supper. Jesus has been talking to his followers and saying to them, believe in me. In this world, you're going to have trouble, but believe in me. And then they stand up. Judas is left to go betray Jesus. Jesus has everyone stand up, and they leave the upper room, and they start walking to the Garden of Gethsemane. Doesn't say that Jesus told them where they were going, but it would seem that this was a typical walk for them to go pray in the garden, because Judas knew where they were going to go. He knew where to find Jesus. And so they're walking. Sun's starting to set. Jesus knows what awaits. The disciples don't fully realize. So what do you say? As he's walking, he notices the vines and the branches that stretch alongside the road. They've been growing there, some of them for generations. And so as they walk, he says to them, John 15, verse 5, it's kind of our anchor text for this series as we study through the whole chapter. Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Look, what you need to remember, guys, is that I am the vine and you're the branches. Like that's the picture that you have to keep in your mind. And no matter what happens, no matter what circumstances you have to deal with or what kind of uncertainty you face, just remember you are the branch. You're not the vine. You don't try to find strength from within. You don't try to find peace from within. That's not your job. That's my job to give it to you. Your job is to stay connected to me. My job is to make sure you have the peace, the joy, the strength that you need for this journey. First verse of John 15 verse 1, Jesus says, I am the true vine, the true vine. So if you do a little study on this metaphor throughout Scripture, here's what you'll find. In the Old Testament, the vine metaphor was used to describe the people of God. And it was usually in the context of a rebuke, where God is saying to his people of Israel, you're the vine, but you're not bearing any fruit. You're the vine, this is what you've been called to, but you're not living out your calling. You're the vine. Why don't you have this fruit in your life? And now Jesus gets to John 15, and he's like, we're gonna change this up. I'm gonna flip this metaphor for you. I'm the vine. You're the branch. No, wait. I thought I was the vine. Throughout the whole Old Testament, it's I'm the vine. And Jesus is like, no, I am. You're the branch. Why? Because you couldn't do it. You tried. Appreciate the effort. But when you were the vine, you just didn't bear the kind of fruit that God wanted to see in you and through you. So from now on, I'm the vine, you're the branch. In me, you will bear much fruit. So, okay, I'm the branch. What do I do? If I'm the branch, what do I do? You be the branch. Your job is to stay connected to the vine, because in Jesus, you will find what you couldn't find in yourself. He wants to do for you what you can't do on your own. He wants to produce in you what you can't seem to produce in yourself. Because if you're over here being the vine and you're trying to have peace and you're just trying to produce peace, it's not working very well. Everything's falling apart, trying to produce joy. You're reading some self-help books and you've got some best practices, and here's what I'm going to do to be more joyful. I'm going to produce joy. And Jesus is like, no. You're the branch. I'll produce joy. You stay connected to me, and we'll watch that fruit grow in your life. And so Jesus says, I am the true vine. You be the branch. And so that's what we're talking about in this series, is how do we do that? How do we stay connected to Jesus no matter what? How do we find in him what a lot of us have spent years trying to produce ourselves and just are done with it? We're frustrated and we're tired, discouraged and defeated. How do we find that in Jesus? So the title of this message is The Branch Life. There's this growing trend for brands to become lifestyle brands, right? Like a clothing brand would be example of this. Be like Harley Davidson. If you see a Harley Davidson t-shirt, you'll see on there sometimes, member for life. In other words, you're a part of a community, and this is part of your identity. You're a member for life. Harley Davidson brand is a lifestyle brand. Another example would be like the Salt Life. I'm sure you've seen t-shirts or bumper stickers that someone is declaring that their identity and their community isn't Kentucky, it's not India, it's the beach. Like they would rather be at sea. It's a declaration of this is who I am. This is the life that I'm committed to. So Jesus comes in and with the branch gives us a metaphor that is a metaphor for our lives. That we are to, in all things, be the branch. So what's it mean? Well, as we kind of introduce the series, I want to talk to you a little bit on a personal level of what God's been teaching me in this season about being the branch. So being the branch, living the branch life means I'm going to live out of my identity. Or I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to find my significance in who I am, not what I do. Now the irony is, when I know who I am, I'll know what to do. But I want to find my significance, my worth. I want to find my identity not in what I do, but by who I am. And what I've discovered is that's just an area where I have a long ways to grow. It's interesting to me that Jesus doesn't talk to his disciples and say, hey guys, gather around. I've printed something out for you. I've got this 5-year strategy. And if you'll just kind of trace through this 5-year strategy, you'll see what each of you are responsible for. Here's a task list that I need each of you to fulfill. And if you'll just do these things, we're going to change the world. The mission's going to be accomplished. So here's the 5-year strategy. Here's your task list. Just work through it. Just trust the system. That's not the conversation. Jesus reminds them who they are. He says, you are the branch. You stay connected to me, and we'll figure this out. I will produce in you what you need to change the world. And the priority was on connection, not on production. And just one of the things I've learned in this pandemic season is I thought I was doing a lot better at this than I was. I didn't realize how tied my identity and my worth, how tied those things were to what I could produce. Have you discovered some of this? Like I worked hard before, and then so much of what we worked for was taken from us, and so now we're working, trying to produce, and we're not seeing the fruit. Like our ability to produce, in large part, was taken from us, and so for many of us, and it's what I saw in myself, is that too much of my identity and self-worth also started to be taken from me because I couldn't produce the way that I wanted to or the way that I used to. And what I found is that in me, I have this tendency to determine my worth or my success or my significance by what I can get done, what I can accomplish. At the end of the day, I want to be able to look and say, look what I did today.